But I would argue, and indeed will within this video, that he makes this shift because he recognises that the quantum realm doesn't abide classical causation, and thus to save the argument he needs the universe to be treated as if it's strictly macroscopic.
My name is Haden Clark, and this is Answering Atheists: Causation and Creation, a Response to Rationality Rules. Stephen Woodford is the creator of the YouTube channel Rationality Rules, well known for his debunked videos. Indeed, he has over 200,000 subscribers on his channel. Recently, he started doing some video responses to Dr. William Lane Craig. The one I'm responding to today is titled Causation and Creation, in which Stephen tries to show that Dr. Craig's Kalam cosmological argument is based on a faulty or outdated understanding of causality. He does so by appealing to quantum mechanics. He says a lot of things in response to Craig, but at the core of his argument is the idea that quantum mechanics has shown that the classical, or to be more specific, the scholastic understanding of causation is outdated and indeed false. This is where I will focus my response on, but you can watch his full reply to Dr. Craig by following the link below. For now, let's hear what Stephen has to say about quantum mechanics.
While our intuition would have us believe that creation and classical causation are indisputably linked, quantum mechanics clearly demonstrates that they're not. In the classical, macroscopic world, we see one domino, event A, cause the fall of another domino, event B, but in the quantum realm, this isn't the case. For example, studies of quantum superposition, which is a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics, demonstrates that event A can cause event B can cause event A, and on occasion, both A and B can be completely independent.
He repeatedly says that quantum mechanics demonstrates this and demonstrates that. This is obviously false. Quantum mechanics, and physics more broadly, demonstrates nothing. It simply describes. The correct thing to say is that quantum mechanics describes such and such a state without describing its cause. It's an illogical move to then say quantum mechanics demonstrates that such and such a state does not have a cause. No, it simply doesn't describe it in the mathematical abstraction. The point is, to quote Ed Feser, it is that quantum mechanics, which merely describes the behavior of a system, tells you nothing one way or the other about why the system behaves that way. It also tells you nothing one way or the other about whether the question of why it behaves that way is a good question, whether it has any answer in the first place, and so forth. To the issue at hand, quantum mechanics is simply irrelevant. And if you don't like Ed Feser, you can take it from the famous atheist Bertrand Russell. Theoretical physics, lays down certain fundamental equations which enable it to deal with the logical structure of events, while leaving it completely unknown what is the intrinsic character of the events that have the structure. All that physics gives us is certain equations giving abstract properties of their changes, but as to what it is that changes, and what it changes from and to, as to this, physics is silent. Physics tells us what happened, but not why it happened, or what caused it to happen. And physics cannot tell us that asking why, or asking for a cause, is not a valid question. Any response to that question, even the response that is not a valid question, will be a philosophical statement and stand in want of a philosophical defense. To quote Ed Feser one more time, that A and B will behave in such and such a way is all the law qua law commits you to. That A is the cause of B drops out as irrelevant. Turning to physics for these sort of answers is akin to using a metal detector to search for plastic and then throwing your hands up in the air and saying, well, I guess plastic doesn't exist. No, you're simply using the wrong tool. To summarize, Stephen's problem is that he doesn't understand the nature of physics, or the nature of metaphysics for that matter. Metaphysics studies being as it is. Physics gives us mathematical abstractions of events. How someone who is self-named Rationality Rules could miss this is beyond me. To go on the offensive, and for good measure, allow me to define and to defend the classical, that is scholastic, understanding of the principle of causality. The principle of causality is simply that nothing can be reduced from potentiality to actuality except by something in a state of actuality, to quote Thomas Aquinas. For something to come into being is simply for a thing to move from potentially existing to actually existing. Now, the principle of causality says that this is only possible if the potential to exist is made actual by something that is already actual, and therefore, as Craig says,
whatever begins to exist has a cause of its beginning.
and the defense of this is simple. Potentials can do nothing on their own for the sheer fact that they are, well, potentials and not actual. If left alone, all they will ever do is be potential. They must be made actual in order to come into existence, and this requires that something act upon it, namely something already actual. To deny this would be to affirm absurdity. But the granddaddy claim of them all that Stephen makes, unabashedly, is this.
What's more, we see atoms both excited and not excited at the same time, which calls into question the law of non-contradiction, and we can even see them in two separate positions at the same time. Add to this quantum entanglement, quantum fluctuations, and other such quantum observations, and our beloved classical causation goes completely and utterly out the window.
Seriously? Quantum mechanics calls into question the law of non-contradiction? Just so we're clear, the law of non-contradiction is that A cannot be not A at the same time and in the same way, which is based on the metaphysical principle that something cannot be and not be at the same time and in the same way. Stephen thinks that quantum mechanics calls this principle into question because scientists observe superposition. Here's the question. Do scientists observe superposition and not observe superposition at the same time and in the same way? Or does quantum mechanics call into question the principle of contradiction and not call into question the principle of contradiction at the same time and in the same way? Of course not. As soon as Stephen affirms that quantum mechanics calls into question the law of non-contradiction, he simultaneously denies its negative, namely that quantum mechanics does not call into question the law of non-contradiction. But all he does is prove that the law of non-contradiction stands as firm as ever. In summary, all Stephen has shown is that he does not understand physics or metaphysics, and that these principles are as safe as ever. Because I believe that rationality does indeed rule, I find it necessary to reject the absurd claims of popular atheists like this and announce them debunked.